Sex crimes against children with disabilities often go unrecognized. Children with disabilities are sexually assaulted at 7 times the rate of people without disabilities, according to the United States Department of Justice. It's a crime that often goes unrecognized and unpunished. No one should face sexual abuse. The Insider exclusive Justice in America news team has investigated horrendous incidents of sexual abuse and pushed for reform to ensure these assaults are promptly reported and investigated. And in this special Insider exclusive Justice in America Network TV special, our news team visits with Ralph Wegas, founder of the law offices of Ralph M. Wegas, who represented a 16-year-old child with developmental disabilities who attended a special education class at Independence High School in Bakersfield, California, and was sexually assaulted by another developmentally disabled student. Because Jane is nonverbal autistic, she could not explain the mental pain and severe emotional distress she was dealing with. She became moody and depressed and displayed regressive behavior. Here's her father describing the nightmare that he and his daughter experienced from Jane's sexual assault through the challenges of the legal system to finally get justice.
I'm the father of a developmentally disabled autistic daughter. Remembering the incident and how the school district immediately tried to cover the incident up, and the way I felt that they did not even give her the basic medical attention that you would give any person on the street. No medical attention was given to her for over 5-6 hours before we took her to the hospital, before I called the police. Because when I asked them, did you call the police department? No, we're still waiting on the district to give us direction. And not only did they not give her medical attention, they put her on the same bus with her attacker to send her home. That is what really got me angry. My recommendation for any parent that has an autistic child or a child with disabilities is that you visit the school unannounced. School districts now have rules that you can't visit a school unless they get 24-hour notice. I recommend that you put a camera on your child somewhere to see how they're really treated at the schools. When my daughter was attacked, there were only 4 students in the classroom, 1 teacher and 2 teacher aides. So who wasn't doing their job when 2 students are gone? And they find this young man with his pants down, my daughter, her pants down, and he's behind my daughter with his hands on her hips, and my daughter screaming and crying. To this day, I still feel the same way. But being held to a higher standard because of the type of work I do, I have to be very careful. But I would tell the parents, talk to your children and visit those schools. Because even after the school is directed on how to hold their classrooms and what they need to change, it never gets done unless you do your job and follow up.
Ralph successfully won a $1.4 million verdict in this case. Ralph has earned a reputation as an unyielding trial lawyer who repeatedly represents individuals and families and repeatedly wins. He has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Bakersfield and in California. He's built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. And his amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from Bakersfield, California. It is my great pleasure to introduce Ralph Wegas to the show. Welcome to the show, Ralph.
Well, good to meet you.
Tell our audience a little bit about your firm. What type of law do you practice?
My firm is a small firm. I have about 3 lawyers that work for me. And our practice is very limited. It's a litigation practice, and it's very varied. We work on under 10 cases at any one time. And the circumstances just occur that we get the gift of an opportunity to be involved in great cases.
You represent mainly the little guy, don't you?
I do.
Now, lawyers, when they graduate law school, they have choices, right? They can go to work for a major law firm representing corporations, but you stuck with the little guy. Why is that?
You know, a sense of freedom. Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody tells you how hard you can work, and you get to choose where you're spending your life and who you're spending it for.
You have taken on some major companies, and won. And you're up against some of the biggest law firms out there, right?
It's always the case, and you know, the thing they can't replace is they can't replace your passion for who you're representing, and they can't outwork you.
Today we're here talking about a case of a young, developmentally disabled autistic girl. At the age of 16, she was sexually assaulted. Tell our audience a little bit about your client.
My client is somebody I connected to because I have represented people that have suffered emotional injuries before, and so I have a deep feeling about that and a deep feeling about the suffering of that. And this client came to me as somebody that was a huge challenge because she can't communicate at all about her injuries. And the defense was very flippant and arrogant about that, saying, how can you prove your case? She can't communicate. You can't prove this case. And you know, I look at children like that, and they have their own sense of a perfect world. And when they're assaulted, it shatters their whole sense of safety and causes them to just go into emotional chaos that they can't get help for. And that's what drove me to press onward and onward in this case.
As you discovered various facts about the case, what did you find out exactly happened?
Well, I found out that what happened is she was with other special needs children, and one of the special needs children was a sexually aggressive young man, and he attacked her in a bathroom, and the school, rather than rush to her aid, rushed to their own aid in a process of covering up and having a litigation approach of take no prisoners and denial.
You know, I was amazed at the facts. It was discovered she was screaming in the bathroom.
She was.
Which caused one of the teachers to find out about it this in the first place.
That's correct.
It happened in the morning sometime, and nobody called the parents. Nobody called the police. In fact, we're going to have her father on here in a bit. And I understand that he was the one that finally called the police.
He did.
Yeah. And then they went into their cover-up mode. Tell us a little about and when we were talking about the cover-up mode, this school is insured by a separate insurance company.
That's correct.
For events like this. Their lawyer came up with a very creative and yet disgusting, if you will, defense that if she was developmentally disabled and autistic, then no rape occurred because she couldn't say anything about it, correct?
Couldn't say anything about it, and they even got experts to say that she couldn't experience it. There was no, she was like a rag doll that couldn't be affected by this attack.
One of the experts that the school provided did not even have a license in psychology or whatever, right?
That's right. She was a fraud and had been used repeatedly to disadvantage children as an expert witness.
Interesting fact that you provided us was the fact that people who are developmentally disabled, maybe can't communicate, can't process the trauma that normal kids can they? So sometimes they're more deeply affected, as she was, right?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine yourself traumatized and thrown into an emotional hell and not being able to get the relief of processing any therapy, somebody saying something to you to help. I mean, just think about how our spirits are lifted when we're down with somebody communicating effectively with us. And she is a prisoner of all the impact of that abuse.
Tell our audience a little bit about what happened legally. There was a trial initially, wasn't there?
Well, there was a trial where we saw the defense of just total disregard for her as a human being, where we saw the governmental entity of the school district being an example of abuse and lying rather than an example of truthfulness and accountability. And the jury struggled to reach a verdict, and they reached a compromise verdict. And the compromise was they had a $10 million verdict for 8 of 9 necessary jurors, and they had to compromise down to $1.5 million verdict to get the 9th vote.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on that. What were some of the changes that happened at the school after this case?
I don't believe there's any changes at the school. The school has the same defense attorney working for them today on other cases. They have the same leaders in the insurance company that is managing their claims and managing them the same way.
Right now, we're going to bring on your client's father, Orlando. So let's bring him on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Orlando to the show. Welcome to the show, Orlando.
Thank you.
You have been through hell and back with this case of what happened to your daughter. You are a law enforcement officer. You're well aware of what schools should do when things like this happen, when sexual assaults happen. What was your feeling and what were your immediate thoughts when you finally found out what happened to your daughter at school? And more importantly, the fact that they never called the police. You're the one that called the police, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell us your feelings initially when you first heard this.
The incident occurred on 1100 hours in the morning. When I discovered it at 1600, first thing I asked, they said the incident happened at school. I said, okay. She told me what happened. I said, okay. I said, what hospital did you take her to? I said, well, what hospital? We haven't taken her to hospital yet. We're still waiting on the district to get back to us. So I knew right there and then, as mandated reporters, a cover-up began. And from that point on, never had faith in the school district again. I mean, it was just a traumatic event.
You are the one that had the daughter that was injured. You are the one that had your daughter sexually assaulted, and yet the school made you out to be the bad guy, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
And why is that, do you think?
A cover-up. I hold people accountable for their actions or lack of. And almost immediately, the school attempted to cover up. The special education program manager was let go, supposed to reassigned that same day. And the cover-up began from that point on.
As you traverse through the legal system, what is your opinion of justice in the court system today?
I believe in the legal system, but I believe it failed my daughter, and it's failed other children as well.
If you had the school administration here right in front of you right now, what would you say to them?
What have you done to make the schools safer for our children that are autistic? Because my daughter's autistic, she was treated like a third-class citizen, not even a second class, a third-class citizen. She had no rights. Because of her medical condition, the school believed, according to their attorneys, that this incident would not affect her.
Which the expert disputed, didn't they? I mean, the real expert.
It certainly did.
And I was surprised, as I said earlier, I was surprised that children who are developmentally disabled have a harder time processing trauma, don't they? Because they cannot talk to someone, especially when they're autistic too, you know? They can't talk to them, they can't share. Sharing allows you to, you know, kind of release the burden that you're carrying around inside yourself, right?
Yes. If you take a sexual assault individual that gets sexually assaulted, a normal person, you look at the problems they end up having throughout their life after this sexual assault. That is compounded 100 to 1,000 times with my daughter since she's nonverbal. So we have to do extra special things with her to be able to read what she's going through. We are with her 24/7, so we know when she's having a good day, when she's having a bad day, when she has a nightmare. So we adjust our family. Thank God we have a good family that works together. We all try to assist my daughter.
How is she today?
She's doing well. She's 26 now. 10 years. It happened 2009, so it's 10 years. She has good days and bad days. Again, I'm filled with a house full of women. You know, I have 5 daughters, so it's.
You're blessed.
So I'm blessed. Yes, sir, I am. I am blessed.
What do you think about the job that Ralph did for her?
Excellent job, Mr. Weegis. I didn't know who to turn to. I was lucky that I made contact with Mr. Weegis, and thanks to him, I believe we exposed the Kern High School District. But again, we can go back to the school that she's at, and I guarantee you, they changed nothing.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
You know, these kind of cases bring out some questions that people who are watching the show may have. So let me ask you a couple of questions that relate to this type of a case. What is child abuse?
Child abuse is, when we say it, we all think instantly we understand it. But when we look at child abuse in a sexual sense, it's somebody getting their own sexual gratification out of a child, and that is what we will see happening in many different ways, from touching to fondling to actual sexual intercourse and rape, sodomy. It takes on all kinds of forms and degrees.
What are some signs and symptoms of child abuse and neglect?
The signs and symptoms, I believe, are when you see a major change in the child.
In their behavior.
In their behavior, their happiness, their demeanor, their way they keep themselves. It truly is a night and day difference. And that night and day difference doesn't have to be, it's subtle also. I mean, you will, in this case, it was dramatic because what we have is, they call it emotional dysregulation. Well, what's emotional dysregulation? Well, somebody crying uncontrollably, somebody that is, pooping and peeing their pants, somebody that is staring off into space, nightmares, all kinds of emotional ramifications.
They regrets.
They do.
The school is what legally is called a mandated reporter, correct?
That's correct.
They are supposed to report these incidents to the police, correct?
That's correct.
They did not in this case.
They did not.
And they did not because they didn't want the police to know about this, correct?
That's correct. The law is so clear that if you have a whisper of a concern, that you are to immediately report it to the police. But people that are not in the right mind and the right place, their concern isn't for the child. Their concern is for themselves. And so what they do is they attempt to cover up, and in this case, how they thought they were safe.
Because they thought you couldn't prove your case.
Right. Who's this girl going to be able to communicate with? And her father, when he saw her in the car, instantly, he knew something was very wrong.
Can anybody make a report of sexual abuse?
Absolutely.
Can you make an anonymous report of sexual abuse?
Absolutely.
Well, you did a wonderful job on this. It's a tough case, very challenging. Because of this case, it's in the news. A lot of people see that you handle difficult and challenging cases. How do you end up selecting the cases that you end up representing?
It really becomes just a connection you have. And you have an instinct that you can make a difference. And so that's the best explanation I can give you. It's very individualized, and there isn't a process of sorting it out that I would identify other than that. It's somebody needs help, and you think you can make a difference. And in the final sense, what does your life add up to? It doesn't add up to money. It adds up to the difference you can make in somebody else's life.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. You did a great job. And I'm sure not only is your client and her father very, very happy about this, but, it does make a difference. That's why we do these shows, so people can see that they can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.